Hello again, and welcome to episode 2 of the Save State Gamer, the top 5 DSi games / Xmas special. This is Phil. I played the Save State Gamer, and I'm going to do commentary on this and the rest of the episodes, presumably in sequence. I guess time will tell if there's any reason not to do that. I do want to open by thanking everybody for the feedback on the episode 1 commentary. It made me feel pretty good to know that you guys are enjoying it and that somebody out there actually does want to listen to this. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to commentate the episode, obviously, but also stick around afterwards, as I did with the first video. Some of you may not know the video was split in two. I continued speaking after the show itself was over because I had a few other things I wanted to cover. This time around, what I'm going to do afterwards is address 5 questions, just to pick a number, that were left as comments to the previous video. So stick around for that. Before the video starts, I do want to, it's a short one and there's a few things I want to point out. You'll notice a difference in the momentum of the review, which I ascribe totally to the inclusion of background music, continuous background music, which really gives it a pace that the first episode didn't have. It was sort of a happy accident here, but it worked wonders, and it definitely set the precedent for later, more energetic videos. The first one was just far too passive, really. There was not much to be enjoyed there. In fact, I'm reminded, I'll tell a brief little anecdote, I guess. Graham Linehan, who was the co-creator of one of my favorite British shows, Father Ted, discussed at some point, I think it was in an interview, the difficulty of trying to create a boring comedy character. Because if you create a character whose primary comedic trait is that he's dull, it's very difficult to pull that off without actually making the audience bored in his presence. It's a very tight line to walk, and for some reason, of all the things that I could have chosen to make fun of Chris Spores about, I centered on that for my first video. That was very foolish. So you'll notice this time around Crisbo is a lot more excitable, and that works wonders with the character. So let's go. You can tell already that my approach to the performance has changed. The line readings are a lot more, I don't even know the word for it, but there's a kind of restrained excitability here. And that's something I always did actually like about Crisbo, the character. I didn't plan on it, but he sort of grew into this sort of amateur television presenter where he really just wants people to like him, and he has a good time doing what he does. Which was another fun thing, is that he very rarely gets the chance to be angry. And I know that that's a very common critique of the irate gamer, is that he doesn't really get that mad. But with Crisbo, he never gets mad at all. It's just either he's very happy or he's extraordinarily depressed. And there are very few other emotions that he registers. The music in the introductory sequence was a bluegrass cover of Ding Dong Merrily on High, which I'd heard on YouTube. There was a guy who played it on the banjo, and I contacted him to ask if I could use it, not for this video, but for a different video. And he was kind enough not only to give me permission, but to provide me with a higher quality recording of it, which was great. I wish I could remember his name. I would happily point you toward him right now. But yeah, he was fantastic. As far as the introductory sequence goes, episode number, 502 or whatever, was never meant to imply that Crisbo had recorded 500 episodes before what you're seeing, but it was meant to imply that he'd recorded a great deal of them. The 50 prefix was just an idea of what season he was on. You know, season 1 episodes started at 101, presumably, but didn't necessarily go to 199. The only problem with that, I do think it's actually kind of a fun joke that we joined this guy years and years after he's been making these videos and he hasn't gotten much better. But the thing that works against it is how poor the Freddy Farkas review was. I love that game, I do have to point that out. That was one of my genuine favorites growing up, and it still is. It's probably the most legitimately funny game I've ever played. But the fact that that review was so awful, and it was it was coming in season 5. I didn't really mean to imply that he's been quite that bad for quite that long. I would like to think that this is sort of what you're seeing right here. This is sort of the level of quality that he's maintained throughout his video game reviewing career. None of this gameplay footage is me, by the way. In fact, almost none of the gameplay footage that you will see in any of my videos are me, and that was intentional. The exceptions there are Freddy Farkas, the Mega Man video, and that might be it. Pac-Man, sorry, Pac-Man is me, at least some of it, and that might be it. Now, the reason for that is, one, it would have been very time-consuming to track down emulators and ROMs and so on, just for the sake of recording silly gameplay footage, especially in a video like this where there's so many different games. But it was also a way to kind of challenge myself as a writer of Irate Gamer parodies, because the easiest thing to do, of course, is to just jump repeatedly into an enemy or fall intentionally into a pit, play poorly and stupidly, which I certainly did in the videos that I used my own gameplay footage. But in the others, you had to come up with better jokes. It wasn't just a matter of, oh, I can't jump on this guy? I could do it in Super Mario Brothers. Why can't I do it here? You have to come up with different jokes when you don't actually have control over the footage. So, for example, you'll see here, well, I guess this guy, whoever's playing, is not that good, but you're not necessarily working with bad footage. Usually the stuff on YouTube is people showing off how good they are. There's very few people who, upload a video for the sake of showing that they're awful, so you can't really use that. My pronunciation of Mario, by the way, that's me. That's actually how I pronounce it. I know people make fun of me. They tell me it's Morio? I don't know. I can't even pronounce it the way people tell me to. But I blame that on my New Jersey upbringing. I don't live in New Jersey anymore. I haven't for many years. But periodically I'd run into others from New Jersey who pronounce it the same way. Maybe it's just a regional thing within New Jersey, but, I'm stuck that way. It's the way my mouth works. The joke about babbies, by the way, I know Crisbo does have a bad track record when it comes to pronunciation. Babbies is specifically an inside joke between a friend and I, but also a video game joke, because it was from Bubble Bobble. When she and I finally finished Bubble Bobble, we'd played it for years as kids, and then in college we got together and we set aside literally a full weekend of just playing Bubble Bobble to beat fucking Bubble Bobble. And eventually we did. And I think it was the ending sequence. It may not have been, but it was definitely the same weekend that we beat it. The two dinosaurs came on screen, and the text appeared congratulating you, and it named the characters. I always thought they were called Bub and Bob, and I still think they are. It's a Talking Heads reference, by the way. Chopping the arm is from the Once in a Lifetime video. Oh, I got to get into the gestures at some point. But anyway, yeah, I thought the characters were named Bub and Bob, but in the narrative text, it said that they were Bobby and Babby, which is certainly like a Bimmy Lee sort of mistranslation or a lack of care. But yeah, it was Babby has just been a joke between she and I since then, and I used it there. But that's basically it. I guess there are a few other things I could have covered in this video, such as the gestures and the headset people asked about. Headset wasn't intentionally a joke, it's just something, I'm using it right now actually, something I needed in order to get the audio audible in these videos. And I think in the Freddy Farkas video you'll see there's some footage where I have it plugged in and it's not functional. Very Crisbo kind of thing, but it was legit. That was really me. But you'll notice that the audio is a lot more clear when it's plugged in and works. So that was sort of necessity. I could have worked around that. Eventually I could have found some other solution, but I didn't want to. I thought it was interesting to sort of maintain this low-tech approach to creating these video game reviews. And people over the years, and I thank them, people over the episodes, would contact me and they'd say, "Hey, I'm such a great fan, and I have this spare webcam. It's so much better than what you're using, and I'm going to donate it to you for these videos." And I think someone did actually offer me like a clip-on microphone and things like that. The offers I genuinely appreciated. They were flattering, but I couldn't take anyone up on it because I didn't actually want that. People, yeah, they offered me video editing programs and stuff like that, so I wouldn't have to use Windows Movie Maker. But intentionally, I became comfortable with that low-tech approach, with creating the video game reviews that were very poor. I didn't want to step up to a higher quality, a higher capacity, I guess, for quality of video game review, because that doesn't make it funnier. I have never seen a joke that worked better because the special effects were good.